Hello everyone, I am Qrmp and I am going to discuss with you here in this video on the returns, which is on this new tax regime of good and service tax. A brief overview of the return. Why do we need the return? We need the return because it is the mode for the transfer of information to the tax administration to declare the tax liability for a given period, to furnish the detail about the taxes paid in accordance to that return, a statement of outward supplies and inward supplies, view of the statement of whatever tax you have paid and what are the input tax available for you, and last is the summary of all the transactions that you have done in a year. Okay, then what is a Gst return? We are going to file the return, but what are these return are meant for? A return is a document containing detail of transaction which a taxpayer is required to file with the tax administrative authorities, and this is used by tax authorities to calculate what is his tax liability. While filing the return, any taxpayer has been given the opportunity to assess his own inward and outward supplies. Whatever they are doing, whether they are doing it rightly or wrongly, this is being monitored by the tax authorities. Under GST, a registered taxpayer has to file the GST return for his purchases, the sales. He has to compute the GST on sales and avail the input tax credit on his purchase. Clear? Next, who are the persons that are liable to file the GST return? Anyone who has registered under GST, all should file a return. For any regular business, he has to file 2 monthly return and 1 annual return, and the total amount of return in a year will be 26. For taxpayer filing quarterly return, every quarter they have to file their return, and the number of returns that these taxpayers have to file in a year is 17. And for compulsion taxpayer, the return filed by them will be 5 returns in a year. And next, here we'll discuss with the type of GST return. Not all the taxpayer will file the same return. A different type of taxpayer will file different return form. And what are these forms? Let us discuss it here. I've shown you in this table. Here is the list of all the returns to be filed as prescribed by the GST law along with the due dates. The return form, which is the Gstr 1. What are the description of this Gstr 1? It is the detail of outward supplies, and it has to file in a monthly or quarterly basis. For those who opt for quarterly, they will file it quarterly. For those who opt for monthly, they will file it on a monthly basis. And what are the due dates of filing Gstr 1? Is 11 of the next month with effect from October 2018 to September 2020. In between these dates, from 10th of 2018 to 9th of 2020, they have to file 11th of the next month. While previous to this period, they have been filed 10th of the next month. And for those who opted for a quarterly return, they will file at the end of the month succeeding the quarter. Means if they file for a quarter ending in March, they will file at the end of the month succeeding the quarter. Clear? For Gstr2, it is the detail of inward supplies affecting ITC. Is the inward supplies mean whatever purchase you have done, that will be included in the return form Gstr2. This Gstr2 you need not file, but it is auto populated. Okay, this is a monthly. You have to file it monthly, and it is on the 15th of the next month. But this Gstr2 has been suspended from September 2017 onward. That means up till now, no one is filing Gstr2. Clear? For Gstr3 also, it is a monthly return on the basis of financing of outward supplies, whatever sales and whatever purchase that will be crop up into Gstr3, and it is a monthly return which you have to file on the 20th of the next month. But this type of return has also been suspended from September 2017 onward. Okay. The Gstr3B, what is the description of this? It is the summary of outward supplies along with input tax credit, which is declared with the payment of tax. This also is a monthly return, and the due date for filing the Gstr3B is staggered from the month of January 2020 onward. Previously, Gstr3B has to be filed on the 20th of the next month for all the taxpayers. All the taxpayers should file this Gstr3B on the 20th of the next month. But from January 2020 onward, the filing of Gstr3B has been in a staggered manner. Let us discuss what are these staggered manner in which Gstr3B is to be filed. For taxpayer with aggregate turnover in the previous financial year is more than 5 crore, they have to file on the 20th of the next month. For the taxpayer with aggregate turnover equal to or below 5 crore, they have to file on the 22nd of the next month. For taxpayer in the X category UTs and taxpayer in the category Y state or union territories, they have to file on the 24th of the next month. This means there are three dates for filing Gstr3B. 20th is for those taxpayers who exceed 5 crore. 22nd is for those taxpayers who is below 5 crore in the previous financial year, and 24th of the next month is for those taxpayers which are in the category X and Y state in India. What are these states? The category X states, they include Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, Maharashtra and so on, while the Y categories Himachal, Punjab and our state Meghalaya also fall under the Y category state, that is 24th of the next month. Clear? Next is the return form Qrmp 08. Qrmp 08 is a statement cum challan to make a tax payment by a taxpayer registered under composition scheme. For all the taxpayers who are under the composition scheme, they have to file the Qrmp 08, which is a quarterly return, and the due date is 18th of the month succeeding the quarter. This return replaces the erstwhile Gstr 4. Previously, this composition dealer who are this dealer under the composition scheme, they have been filing Gstr 4 on a quarterly basis. But now, instead of Gstr 4, they have to file Qrmp 08, which is a quarterly return, and that has to be filed on the 18th of the month succeeding the quarter. While this form Gstr 4 has to be filed by taxpayer under composition scheme, but the frequency of filing this type of return is annually, that means once in a year, and the due date is 30th of the month succeeding a financial year. Clear? Gstr 4 has to be filed only once in a year. Next type of return is Gstr 5, which is the return filed by a non-resident or foreign taxable person. This type of return has to be filed on a monthly basis, and the due date is 20th of the next month. Gstr 6 is the return to be filed by the input service distributor to distribute the eligible input tax rate to its branches, and this has to be filed on a monthly basis, and the due date is 13th of the next month. Gstr 7 has to be filed by the government authorities who are deducting TDS, and this has to be filed on a monthly basis, and the due date is 10th of the next month. Gstr 8 has to be filed by the e-commerce operator, and the amount of tax collected at source by them. This has to be filed on a monthly basis, and the due date will be the same, 10th of the next month. The Gstr 9 is the annual return for a normal taxpayer. It has to be filed annually, and the due date will be 31st December of the next financial year. Gstr 9A is the annual return to be filed by a taxpayer under composition levy anytime during the year. Yeah, they have to file annually, and due date will be 31st of December of the next financial year. Remember, 9A is the annual return filed by taxpayer under the composition scheme. And the next type of return is the Gstr 9C, which is a certified reconciliation statement which has to be filed annually, and the due date will be 31st of December of the next financial year, and this kind of statement is usually done by chartered accountant. Okay, normal annual return will be Gstr 9, while 9C is a certified reconciliation statement which has to be prepared by chartered accountant. Next type of return is Gstr 10, which is the final return to be filed by taxpayer whose GST registration is cancelled. Only those taxpayer who want to cancel the registration, those type of taxpayer has to file Gstr 10, which is the final return. And when they should be filed? Once when GST registration is cancelled or surrendered. If the GST registration is cancelled or surrendered, they have to file this Gstr 10. And what will be the due date? Within 3 months of the date of cancellation of the date of the cancelling order, whichever is later. Within 3 months of the date of cancellation or date of cancellation order, whichever is later. This means after the end of 3 months, if the cancellation is done by the order of the tax authorities or the cancellation is done by themselves, they have to file this Gstr 10. And what will be the date? 3 months, whichever is later. Okay. Next type of return is Gstr 11. It is the detail of inward supplies to be furnished by a person having UIN and claim a refund. These are the return to be filed by person having UIN, and this has to be filed on a monthly basis, and the due date is 28th of the month following the month for which a statement is filed. The next, these are all the different type of return and whom should be filed. Now we'll come to the Qrmp scheme, which has been introduced recently. What is a Qrmp scheme? A Qrmp scheme, as provided in the circular dated 10th of November 2020, it is a facilitation measure in order to further ease the process of doing business. Here, the GST Council on its 42nd meeting held on 5th of October 2020 has recommended that registered persons having aggregate turnover up to 5 crore may be allowed to furnish return on a quarterly basis along with monthly payment of tax with effect from 1st January 2021. Any taxable person having the turnover which is up to 5 crore, they may be allowed to furnish the tax return to file on a quarterly basis, but they have to make a payment of tax on a monthly basis. They have to make payment on monthly basis, but return will be filed on a quarterly basis from 1st of January 2021. And then next we will discuss on the blocking of Gstr 1 in certain cases. Via notification number 1 2021, which says that a registered person shall not be allowed to furnish the detail of outward supplies of good or service or both under section 37 in form Gstr 1 if he has not furnished the return in Gstr 3B for preceding 2 months. Tax authorities can block the filing of Gstr 1 if he has not furnished the return in 3B for preceding 2 months. For the preceding 2 months, if have not filing Gstr 3b, then Gstr 1 can be blocked. Clear? The second provision is that a registered person required to furnish return for every quarter under Proviso to Section 1 of Section 39 shall not be allowed to furnish the detail of outward supplies of goods or services or both under Section 37 in Form Gstr 1 or using the invoice furnishing facility if he has not furnished the return in Form Gstr 3b for the preceding tax period. He shall not be allowed to furnish the outward supply of goods under Section 37, which is Form Gstr 1, if he has not furnished the return in Form Gstr 3b for the preceding tax period. And the third provision is that a registered person who is restricted from using the amount available in electric credit ledger to discharge his liability to a tax in excess of 90% of such tax liability under Rule 86b shall not be allowed to furnish the detail of outward supplies of goods or services or both under Section 37 in Form Gstr 1 or using the invoice furnishing facility if he has not furnished the return in Gstr 3b for the preceding tax period. These are the provisions in which a filing of Gstr 1 can be blocked. Okay. Next, we have a little updates on the budget 2021. The Section 16 amended to allow taxpayer claim of the input tax credit based on Gstr 2A and 2B. Henceforth, the input tax credit on invoices or debit notes may be availed only when the detail of such invoice or debit note have been furnished by the supplier in the statement of outward supplies and such detail have been communicated to the recipient of such invoice or debit note. That means such has been communicated to the recipient of such invoice or debit note, then they will be allowed to claim the input tax. Okay, this is the end of this class, this tutorial, and I thank you all for listening to my video.